So now we're going to add some information about our event. And we're going to go up here to our text tool. And what we want to do is place some text in our document. When I know that I'm going to center my text, I like to set it centered. And that way I can click pretty much right where I want the text to center around, and it gets pretty easy to design to. So I'm going to go ahead and type in there. I can tell just by the cursor, this is way too big. So I'm going to drop this down to, let's try 30. And now I'm going to type in gasoline heart, but I want this to be on 2 lines. So it's going to be gasoline and then enter heart. And I can see that I'm typing with black text, so it's not showing up very well on my black background. I just do Control A to select all. And I come up here, click on that, and choose my proper color. I'm going to go with white. And now I click my check mark and I look at my text. And it's looking okay. It says gasoline heart. It looks pretty good. I think that I'm going to make some changes, however. So one trick that I like to do is double click on a text layer thumbnail, and that will automatically select all of the text in my layer. And here I can go to Arial, and I think that I want to go to, there's a font that I like that's really nice and fat. And I just kind of look at these previews as I scroll. But I'm going to try Myriad. So this Myriad Pro Bold also is a very flexible font. And I think that I like the feeling of this font a little bit better for this image. And I can also just play around. I can make sure that my setting is as bold as it can be. And I can try some of these others. Condensed. Oh, I want the opposite of condensed. You know, as I did that, I just automatically got this shock of feeling like, oh, I don't like that. And you need to start being aware of the feelings that you begin to generate as you make design choices. And your client may not be able to tune into what they don't like, but when you make an adjustment and it really hits you wrong, pay attention to that. Again, it's very, very visual. As Photoshop designers, we work with our eyes, not with settings in a box. It doesn't matter what the font is. It doesn't matter what the size is. Unless the client told me very specifically that I had used a specific size, I'm going to go visually, and I'm going to look at the changes that it makes and how it makes the overall image feel, how everything's working together. And it's important that as designers, we're working smart and visually. So don't get hung up on what choices to use. And also, as I expressed earlier in the book, feel free to explore. And you can click enter on the number pad to accept those changes, or click the commit button. One really great trick when everything's basically laid out the way you want, if you just want to play with the font, is as long as you're on that text layer, you can just go up here to the font and use the up and down arrow keys and really kind of cycle through these. Boy, I kind of like that font too. And a lot of times I spend 3 to 5 minutes, maybe even more, going through my fonts and just looking at the options. And it's really important to me, though, that I've got a super fat kind of font to play with. So I'm just moving through and just seeing, do any really strike me? And then I just look at the name when I find one. That's kind of cool, except I don't like that R. You see how this R is like sort of fancy at the bottom? If it weren't for that R, I would really like this font because it's so thick, but it's got a little bit of this cowboy feel because of that R. It's also important when you work with fonts to really look at every letter that you're going to have to use in your particular title. Don't just type in random letters and play with the font. Use the actual text that you need to design with, because the letters that you need to use may convey a slightly different feeling. Like this font, the only thing that's really throwing it way off for me is that R. The rest of it I really like. It's maybe a little too dense though. You know, that actually kind of looks, there's something sort of cool about that. But I think I want a really fat font. I like that, except I'm not super crazy about that G. That's a really beautiful font though. And as you work more and more with design, you will find more of these little details that you'll just start to see and realize how great they are. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I just want to make sure that you feel the freedom to really explore some of these fonts. So I'm going to just go back to Myriad. And I was at Myriad Pro Bold. And note that when you know exactly what font you want, if you just start typing it, it will drop down all of the fonts that have MYR. So it's really easy to find a specific font. You don't have to cycle through the whole list. If you know what you're looking for, it's pretty easy to get right to it. And this is what I mentioned in the book, and we'll go with this one. It's good enough, and we can always tweak it again later. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how to tweak the settings, because we've talked a lot about how to work with a single line of text, but when you have a new line of text, there's a whole new set of settings that we need to think of and be cognizant of as we're designing.